The 60s, 70s, and 80s was the golden era of concept cars. And man, were there some designs that could make you consider selling both kidneys just to get your hands on one. These weren't just cars, they were dreams on wheels, crafted by the world's most visionary designers. So, buckle up, because we're about to take a ride through some of the coolest, most jaw-dropping concept cars of that legendary era. Let's start with the Alfa Romeo Canguro, a name that means kangaroo in Italian. Designed by Bertone in 1964, this sleek machine was meant to be a road-going version of the Alfa Romeo Giulietta TZ, a sports racing car. With its low-slung profile and streamlined body, the Canguro looked like it was ready to leap into the future. Fast forward to 1967, and we find ourselves looking at the AMC Amitron, a tiny electric car shaped like a pyramid, designed to tackle the pollution and oil crisis long before they became global concerns. The American Motors Corporation was thinking way ahead of its time with this one. The Amitron might not have been practical for the 1960s, but it was a glimpse into a future where electric cars would become the norm. And then there's the Alfa Romeo Canguro, unveiled in 1968. Now, this car was a game-changer, designed by the legendary Marcello Gandini at Bertone. The Canguro was all sharp edges and scissor doors, elements that screamed future. It was a complete departure from the curvy designs that had dominated the automotive world up until then. Moving on, we have the Pininfarina Manta, another 1968 gem. This was the first concept car from Giorgetto Giugiaro's new firm, Ital Design. The Manta was radical, with a driver's seat positioned in the center, flanked by two passenger seats slightly to the rear. It wasn't just a car, it was a vision of what the future of driving could look like, a future where design was as important as performance. As the 1960s rolled into the 1970s, the Wedge era truly began to take shape. Designers were no longer just imagining the future, they were carving it out of metal and glass, creating cars that looked like they could cut through the air with ease. Take the 1968 Chevrolet Astro III, for example. With its narrow body and turbine engine, it looked like something out of a science fiction movie. At first glance, you might think it only had 3 wheels, but Chevrolet cleverly tucked the front two so close together that it created that illusion. Then we have the Lancia Stratos HF0, a car that seemed to come from another dimension. Revealed in 1970, this Bertone creation wasn't just low, it was practically scraping the ground. With its sharp lines and extreme stance, the Stratos Zero was more than just a design study. It was a piece of automotive art. This concept was so influential that it paved the way for the production of Lancia Stratos, a car that would go on to become a rally legend. And let's not forget the Ferrari Modulo, also from 1970. This Pininfarina masterpiece was as much a spaceship as it was a car. With its ultra-low saucer-like design, the Modulo looked like it could take off into the stratosphere. It was powered by a 5-liter V12. But let's be honest, this car wasn't about practicality or speed. It was about making a statement, and that statement was, we are not bound by the rules of this earth. Next up is the Citroën Projet C60, a concept that shows just how forward-thinking Citroën was in the 1960s. This car was an attempt to fill the gap between Citroën's tiny 2CV and the luxurious DS. The C60 borrowed the sleek lines of the DS, but added its own unique twist with a reverse-angled rear window and bold, prominent headlights. And just as we thought the Wedge design had reached its peak, the Fiat X19 was born. Inspired by the Autobianchi A112 runabout concept from 1969. The runabout was Bertone's vision of a budget-friendly, mid-engine sports car. 3 years later, this concept became reality with the Fiat X19, a car that brought the thrill of a mid-engine layout to the masses. As we move further into the 1970s, the Wedge design continued to dominate, but it wasn't just about sharp angles and low profiles anymore. Designers started experimenting with more extreme and unconventional ideas, pushing the limits of what a car could be. Take the 1973 Lamborghini Bravo, for example. This concept was envisioned as a possible successor to the Lamborghini Huracan, but it never made it to production. The Bravo took the Wedge design to new heights with its striking angular lines and compact dimensions. It was like a miniature version of the iconic Countach, and while it never hit the streets, its influence on Lamborghini's design language is undeniable. And then there's the 1973 Mercedes-Benz C111. This was more than just a concept car, it was a research vehicle. Mercedes used the C111 to experiment with everything from aerodynamics to alternative powertrains, including a rotary engine. The C111 wasn't just about looking futuristic, it was about exploring the future of automotive technology. And then we have the 1980 Aston Martin Bulldog, a car that truly stretched the boundaries of design and performance. This one-off concept was designed to be the ultimate supercar, with a turbocharged V8 engine that produced up to 700 horsepower. The Bulldog was all about extremes: extreme speed, extreme design, and extreme ambition. Aston Martin claimed it could reach a top speed of 237 miles per hour, but despite all its potential, the Bulldog never saw production. Finally, there's the 1980 Citroën Carin, a concept that looked like it was plucked straight from a sci-fi movie. Citroën's designers threw out the rulebook with this one, creating a pyramid-shaped car with the driver's seat placed in the center, flanked by two passenger seats set slightly back. As we enter the 1980s, the Wedge design that had defined the previous decade began to evolve. Designers started blending the sharp, angular lines of the 70s with softer curves, signaling a transition in automotive aesthetics. One of the most striking examples of this transition is the 1981 Ital-design Aztek. Created by the legendary Giorgetto Giugiaro, the Aztek was a futuristic two-seater that featured a split cockpit design, each seat with its own windscreen and canopy. Although it never saw mass production, the Aztek captured the imagination of car enthusiasts and remains a symbol of 80s innovation. And then there's the 1988 Ferrari Mythos, a concept that brought together the best of both worlds, the sharp edges of the Wedge era and the sensual curves that Ferrari is known for. Based on the Ferrari Testarossa, the Mythos was a bold exploration of what a Ferrari could be in the future. The Mythos never went into production, but its influence can be seen in Ferrari's later models. So, while these cars may never have made it to your driveway, they left an indelible mark on the automotive world. They remind us that the future of driving is limited only by our imagination, and that sometimes the wildest ideas are the ones that drive us forward.